slipping a little. That's pretty good. These straps have made life a lot easier for me. Moving around this material, I'm finding using the, what do you call it, the grapple there, using the log trailer certainly sped up the process. I can put it directly on the trailer here, and then because it sort of lifts it and gives it space for me to run the straps underneath of the whole pile, I can get the strapping done quite easily. Certainly easier than over there on the ground. So these are what I'm using here. And the reason I like using these is I can readjust them. If I get them out to where they're going and they loosen up a little bit, I can put this device on it again and I can torque it down tight again. That's good and tight there. And I've taken some of your advice out there and I've started cutting it when I'm all done. And that way it leaves the excess on the roll and I can reuse it for next time. We're going to go put this out in the meadow and then the sun will dry it. This will eventually become camp wood or who knows, something, who knows, but it'll dry. Well, here we are, folks. We got a few chores done. Those chores, picking up slab wood, moving logs around, that type of thing happens all the time, whether it's on camera or behind the scenes. We got the slab wood out of the way, and I think that Metavic, the log trailer, is certainly the best tool for the job for moving that quickly. Now, I could have come in here with forks on a tractor, obviously the mini skid steer as well, but then I still have to band it, and I still have to move it. And I'm actually moving it a fair distance, and so I think getting the grapple in there, 3 swipes more or less, to put it onto the trailer, then banding it up right on the trailer is about as good as it gets. Now, if you recall, I was using these things right here. I often will retension after it's dried for a while. Sometimes while moving it around and lifting it with the grapple, things can sort of settle into place, and so you give it one last tighten and away you go. Now, you also saw me bring out these spruce here before, and these are certainly a good size, and I'm looking forward to sawing them. Now, the only downside with spruce, in this case, these ones, there's an awful lot of knots on it. So you're going to see me ripping through those in just a minute. We've got this one and this one. This one probably at the small ends around 16 inches. This one just a little bit smaller. Another thing you'll see me using here today that's turned out to be a great addition is this, the roller table, or outfeed table we'll call it. All the slab wood, the lumber, as well as any cants, comes right off the back of the sawmill with the drag back fingers there. And then I can more or less move it, push it off one side or put it onto the trailer, which I often park here for the finished lumber. The slab wood right where you saw it is where the slab from the spruce will go. And then I'll continue the process picking up those slabs after the fact. Yeah, anyways, I think we better get down to it. I'm glad you're here. Here we go. Well, we got some nice spruce lumber piled up there. You can see I got a number of boards there. And one thing's for certain, getting consistency in terms of thickness, in terms of straight cutting is very important, especially when you got a lot of boards one after another. And one thing that's really helped me do that is this thing, the Mikron Setworks. Now, you've probably seen me use that periodically on the channel here, but I'm finding this thing really shines when you get into a larger log. And I'm using the word larger, relatively speaking. If you look around here, a lot of the trees I've been sawing lately aren't that big. This is relatively big compared to those, and having the same thickness all the way down, the same cut thickness, is very important. And so having the Mikron Setworks, where I set that board thickness and I come back after the cut and hit enter and it sets the next cut height automatically. And it may seem like there's a lot going on there with the Setworks, but what I was doing here today was squaring up the log, taking the 4 sides off it, and from that last cut, I'd set a reference point, and that would tell the Setworks to start measuring from that height downwards my desired board thickness until we're done. Now, it also takes into consideration the thickness of the blade, and so that's what allows me to get that complete accuracy in terms of board thickness. If I want a 1 inch, 1.5 inch, 1.25 board, if you don't take into account the kerf on the blade, by the time you start getting a few boards down, you start to notice your thickness of board starts to diminish, because it's always dropping that kerf off the cut as well. But with this, taking it into account, I get the exact same board thickness all the way through. Now, with that in mind, if you wanted to find out the quality of a blade or even the quality of a sawmill, you got to look down the board. Looking down at here, you'll notice everything's nice and flat. They're not flat, they're no good either. So I'm always making sure to get that blade changed out before it dulls. And that's probably what I'm going to do next. I've got some sharp ones over there. We'll get it up onto the sawmill. We'll go get some more logs out yonder, and then we'll be back out here sawing. I appreciate you watching here today. I've got an awful lot going on behind the scenes. If you wanted to see this thing in action a little bit more, maybe the log loader trailer, or even, well, the board edger up there, be sure to check out the videos in my playlist. And if you have any questions, put it down below in the comments. As always, if you did like this video, don't forget to give her the old like-a-roo, as I call it, subscribe, and I hope to see you next time.